We are doing a BBM5 fast draft. We got Scott Conner with us today. How are you, Scott?
Good, man. It's exciting to do another BBM and try to build some unique combinations. Should be fun.
Yeah, we're waiting for about one person here. Tell me what's some of the stuff you've been focused on doing lately in your drafts.
So this would be my 82nd BBM. So I'm over halfway there to max entering it. It's now I think about taking advantage of combinations that I didn't have previously. And it's also about taking advantage of stuff that has changed between now or previously when we started drafting to today. So I think it's been mostly about just trying to build different teams for me. I mean, not everybody's going to have the exact same goals if they haven't done as many drafts. But for me, it's mostly just been about trying to try different things. So I'm at the 4 spot, so it's not going to probably be that different in the first couple rounds. But after that, trying to maybe build out some unique teams compared to what I already have with these combinations. So, when we get into it, you'll see what I mean. But I can already say, based on – so I use this Spike Week tool, which basically allows you to kind of like track your exposures and actually track some of your pick combinations. And it helps because it'll tell you when you have combinations of players when you already have drafted like your first and second round pick together. And so it kind of will keep you on track to building some unique teams, but it doesn't mean I'm necessarily like diversified in the first couple rounds, because honestly, it's impossible to diversify in the first few rounds. At least for me, you just end up getting the same players, same combinations of players, but then it's after that, how do you diversify? So we'll talk through more about it, but that's what I'm mostly focusing on. That's probably what I'll focus on in this draft since I'm at the 4 spot.
For sure. I'm in at the 7th as well. I've been focusing a lot on going some 2-9-5-2 builds, kind of in response to one of the more recent Underdog Portfolio Weeklies where they were talking about where you guys were talking about taking, a late Sony Michel, a late Kyron Williams, and not kind of cornholing yourself by taking too many running backs early. I'm going to go ahead and take AJ Brown here.
Well, it's interesting because the thing about that is that you have basically new running backs that are starting to enter the fold that you're trying to determine, are these guys worth picking or are they not worth picking? But the benefit you have is with the new running backs that are entering the fold is you're getting a lower rostership of those guys across the tournament.
Right.
So I'll take Deneric Prince. That's been the most popular one. There's been a couple others. Deneric Prince, Will Shipley. Those guys are starting to get drafted. But the benefit is they're low owned. So they're not going to be rostered a lot throughout the tournament. However, if they start getting drafted in every draft, they're still going to end up being drafted in 50+% of the drafts, which is less of an advantage. So it's kind of like sprinkling those players in, even if they have a risk of becoming a zero. Like there's a lot of running backs that were taken early on that have risks of becoming zeros that you definitely wouldn't draft today. I mean, just take Clyde Edwards-Helaire instead of Deneric Prince, right?
Right.
But the benefit of Clyde Edwards-Helaire being drafted that much is that his rostership is still going to be extremely high, which if you have him, it's not really that good if you have him in the 18th round and then he's 99% drafted. But if he becomes 50% drafted because people stop drafting him and they just draft Deneric Prince, now you have this interesting conundrum where both players actually become a little bit of a value. And because of that, because they both become a value, it's because they are less rostered across the tournament. So I know it's kind of a unique thing that it's hard to visualize because there isn't a place necessarily where you can see this stuff. Underdog doesn't make this data public, so You can't see the rostership percentages. But if you just think about if you're right on a later round player you want to be right on players outside of the top 15 rounds because there's probably a chance. It's not that you're right more so than somebody else's 15th round pick, but you want to be right when people are only drafting them at a very small clip, if that makes sense.
For sure.
So let me look. I'm on the clock right now. Let me log back into my Spike Week and see what we got. So I have Jamar Chase, and I'm going to go with Brandon Ayuk here because I have 0 Brandon Ayuk with Jamar Chase. 0. Now, is that a little bit of a reach on Ayuk? I mean, maybe, but there's not. In the second round, there's really just flat ranges of players. I mean, they're all the same to me. But the key for me was like, I don't have any Ayuk with Chase. 0. I have 0 teams with those two together. So I had I think 2 teams with Mike Evans and Jamar Chase. So there's no reason to take Mike Evans. 13% of my Mike Evans is with Jamar Chase. So just went with something different.
Right.
Oh, let's see. And I think another thing to point out is do not get obsessive with correlation early in drafts. That's something that I've made the mistake of a little bit, of trying to correlate too much. Like right now, I have 25% of my DK Metcalf shares are with Brandon Ayuk, just because they seem to fall in that same range, right?
Right.
So I'm going to go with another guy that I have no combinations with, 0 with Jamar Chase or with Brandon Ayuk. So I took Cooper Kupp. 0 correlation between Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, and Cooper Kupp. 0. But that's a unique team for me. So long-winded way through 3 rounds of me kind of explaining what my strategy is.
For sure. I got the chance here to draft Nico and Diggs. So this is probably looking like a CJ Stroud team. I have not yet gotten to take those two together, so we'll see how that plays out for me.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I haven't really paid attention to, but I probably should, is, again, I'll shout out Spike Week. Anybody that's serious about playing underdog, and I don't know what different tools you've used anyway when you're doing your drafts, but I think there's something to be said about focusing on not just the ADP, but also trying to build, especially if you're going to do, I don't know, how many drafts are you going to do in BBM? From the beginning to the end, what's your plan?
I'm hoping to be in the 30 to 40 range.
Okay, so if you're going to do even that many, and when did you start? When did you do your first one? Did you start doing it like May and June?
Yeah, May.
Okay, so if you were drafting in May, you probably have a couple teams that you're going to look back on and you're going to go like, damn, I got that player here. I got that player here. Like, even if you only have 35 teams, I think it's important for you to focus on getting some teams that are different than those, but also different from like an ADP value standpoint as well.
Right.
Like I looked at a team last night where I had, trying to think of the first 5 picks, but it was a combination of, it was Lamar. It was Lamar and gosh, what was it? It might've been like, you know what? I'm going to pull up Twitter. I'm going to find it real quick because I think it's important for the discussion. And I'm up in 3. Let's see what I want to do here. Pickens. Yeah, see, it's weird. I have 13% of my Pickens is already built this way, which means I at least have, and I have 13% George Pickens, which is probably, somewhere like 9 shares of George Pickens. And there he goes. So thank you for taking him.
You're welcome. I was looking at him because I have 67% of my AJ Brown with George Pickens, but what I like about it is that it lets me line up some Baltimore. So maybe I'll take a Justice Hill late to go against my Houston and against my Pittsburgh.
No, I like that. Because I have a lot of Pickens. Like basically I 3 teams built that are exactly like the one that I would have built here if I would have had Pickens on this team. But instead, I will take T. Higgins. And I only have 2 teams with Higgins and Chase. So I don't mind doing that. And then it's interesting. I see you're using Spike Week too. So you can go and see. Yeah. So like 50% of my Joe Burrow is with Jamar Chase.
Right.
And
Yeah.
25% of my Joe Burrow is with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So I'm already starting to kind of pigeonhole myself in to a similar type of build.
Sure.
But I mean, when you take Higgins and Chase, you almost have to just let
Take
Burrow
Burrow,
fly and see
yeah.
where he goes. Well, but so here's the theory. If I already have, and it's probably 2 teams with Chase, Higgins, and Burrow, and 4 teams with Chase and Burrow already, maybe I don't reach on Burrow in this draft.
Right.
In theory, I should be able to get Burrow later because why would anybody else want him unless it's just an auto picker? You know what I mean?
Right.
Which sometimes you can run into those auto pickers that'll just, hell, just Burrow looks good. Sure. And you're like, okay, you have no correlation at all. You're not probably winning, but you're screwing me at the same time. But that type of draft, I think you can kind of push the quarterback to try to get him at a little bit of a cheaper price. Because if I just if I reach on Burrow, what did I really gain? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here's the team I was telling you about. So I have Justin Jefferson, Chris Olave. Then I had Jalen Waddle in the 3rd, which isn't happening anymore. And then I was also able to get Amari Cooper in the 5th and Lamar Jackson in the 4th. So it's just a team you couldn't build today.
Right.
You know what I mean? You could not build that team today based on where things stand. So Anthony Richardson. All right. Well, I'm going to continue to push his ADP up because he should be going here. And I'm just going to take Calvin Ridley. You've been taking some Ridley?
A little
like
bit.
He still kind of falls like to the 5-6 turn because people just see his ADP and they're like, okay, he shouldn't go until here. But I mean, truthfully, if Hopkins misses time, like it's hard to say you would take Christian Kirk over him. Hard to say you would take Jaden Reed. I mean, none of these receivers that are on the board right now that have a higher ADP you would take above Calvin Ridley in my eyes. Plus, he's so easy to correlate later on with others. So,
yeah, I was kind of bummed. I was going to snipe Pitts there at 55, but he goes right before me.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not early for Pitts, but what does that team have working? Team that took Pitts. Just took a random Pitts. He didn't have...
You love to see it.
He didn't have McLaurin. He didn't have London, nothing. He just took random Pitts because why not?
In a room like that where you've got people taking random stuff, I may just take Stroud at 66. We'll see. A little bit ahead rather than pushing, which I should be able to push, right? If this was 2 months ago, I'd be able to push for sure. But I don't know that I can get away with it here.
You should, but the tricky thing with Stroud is there's also Ravens teams. There's also Henry, Lamar. Yeah. Not Lamar because you're not going to take Stroud and Lamar, but there's Henry, Flowers, Andrews, and Tank Dell.
Right.
The teams that could take Stroud. So, I mean, should those teams take Stroud earlier than his ADP? No, but like if somebody that had Andrews and Tank Dell took Stroud, you wouldn't be shocked. You know what I mean? Even right. Andrews and Henry, if they just took Stroud for like the bring back, you wouldn't be shocked. So it's not crazy.
Yeah. And
so I do agree.
I don't see him getting back to 79. And if you look here, I don't have him with Nico at all. I have him with 2 of my 3 digs.
It's a gamble, dude, because the team after me has a quarterback. The team after me has a quarterback. The team on the end, in the middle, does not have any Texans or Ravens. I mean, I'm not taking Stroud, so helps that I'm in this draft. You could push it, but that's up to you. I have no problem if you take him here. Yeah, I get it.
I'm going to opt not to just because I am so heavy in on the Houston stack. And it's not something I've been able to do so far, so I feel comfortable doing it.
Right. Like, you will know your answer. Like, this team has no reason to take a Texan. He took Kyler. Oh, jeez. Wild taking Kyler there. A round ahead of his ADP with no stack. That's the dude that took Pitts.
It sure is.
And it's a badge player. I'm
at a loss.
A little interested in what he's doing there. 6'9". Okay, I do not have a lot of this player, so I'm going to reach a little bit. Take Evan Ingram.
Now talk to me about.
I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have taken Evan Ingram there. I should have waited because everyone else has a tight end between me. That's a mistake by me.
Shoot.
I wanted to try to get Montgomery and Ingram. Montgomery may go, he may not. But I should have taken Montgomery first because all of these teams have Kincaid, McBride. Yep. So, yeah, tactical mistake by me. Now I got to do it in a different direction. Hopefully I don't get sniped on my next pick. If so, I'm in trouble right here. This dude, I have a feeling it's going to happen. I have a feeling it's going to happen that I'm going to have to pivot to James Conner. Either Brian Thomas or James Conner. Oh, sniped me. That was a... Ooh, I have a lot of Brian Thomas, but I would have loved to get Montgomery, Evan Ingram. So now I'm going to have to settle for Evan Ingram and James Conner. And I'm pushing Burrow. Would have been way too early to take him there, but we'll see if anybody gets cute. What are you thinking here?
Well, I was thinking Kamara until a split second ago.
Sniped.
Yeah. I think I'll take some Jalen Warren here. I have a lot of Jalen Warren. Maybe I'll take Najee instead. I have 22% Jalen Warren and only 4% Najee.
There you go. I think another thing that I'd like to try to start doing is building some teams where I'm actually, and I don't think this is the right way to play it this year. I think 2 QB, 2 tight end builds are going to win this thing this year.
I agree.
I think these teams that are taking 3 and 3 are wasting spots, even taking 3 quarterbacks, unless you are really pushing. Like my rule of thumb is and I think you even asked this in the chat the other night, like I'm not taking 3 quarterbacks unless I get my first one round 9 or later,
right?
Round 10 or later. Like if I can get Burrow to fall to like the 9th, I have no problem building a 3 QB Burrow team. Now that's an expensive investment because you would think of Burrow as like he's a top 8 quarterback, right? But I'm getting him at a QB 12-ish price instead of a QB 8 price. So if that's the case, then I actually don't mind going 3 QBs. But if I really wanted to push it, like I'm invested in Burrow and Higgins. So even if I could go 3 QBs by the price, do I want to try to get one of the latest, slimmest 2 QB teams? You know what I mean? So I'm leaning more to 2 QB, 2 tight end, which does mean you have to prioritize them a little bit earlier rather than just saying, oh, I'm going to punt both. And at the end, you feel like, I don't have enough firepower. So Mostert. Where's your line on Hopkins? Will you still take him?
Yeah, maybe not in this build.
That's too early. That's a dumb pick.
Yeah. Because right now, with leading off 5 wide receivers, I think
there goes that random Burrow. There goes that random Burrow with no correlation.
You hate to see it.
I mean, if I would have taken him in a 76, it's too early, so I'll just have to play without him. I have to roll without him. Which makes you wonder, is this a team that you pivot to a 3 QB Bo Nix stack? I mean, I hate doing that, but there's not really any.
Bo Nix, but normally I take him alongside a Burrow or a Levis. Or I've done some 2 QB builds with Levis Nix, and those feel really dangerous.
Oh, I could be an absolute dick right here, but I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. Oh, I'm tempted because I don't have a lot of this player. So Brooks.
You've piqued my interest.
Chase Brown.
Oh, I was going to grab him next.
Well, I thought about going Jake Ferguson or going Dak. just because I guarantee I have no Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Dak Prescott teams. But this dude on the middle, this dude right here, abnormal, is going to take Dak. The only downside, had I not, this is where taking Evan Ingram hurt me, because I could have easily, this guy's going to take Dak. Like, if he's smart, he'll go Dak Ferguson. He shouldn't take a second tight end, but Dak Ferguson falling into your lap right there when you already have Lamb, that's a dream. Yep. That's a very smart manager there. I think I thought about taking Dak, gambling that nobody else would have wanted Ferguson. And I don't really want Ferguson, but I would have taken him there as my second tight end, because, again, it kind of perpetuates that I'm done at tight end. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just flat out done at tight end. So
I'm just bummed that you took Chase Brown. He was going to be my pick.
Let's see. You know what? I'm going to go completely rogue in this draft. I'm going to get Jaden Daniels.
It's a good standalone QB.
Well, and I can backstock him with McCaffrey or Dotson or Mooney or Sanat.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's options. But you can tell this is a little bit of a rogue draft, because other than the guy getting Dak and you taking Stroud, everybody else has just gone random rogue QB.
Right.
I mean, that dude has Christian Watson, so that's not a bad pick for him, getting love there. But, yeah, the guy that just took Josh Palmer, that's the dude that took Burrow. He has zero reason to take him. The dude that took Josh Allen, he has Rams, Chiefs, Buccaneers, Lions. So just random. You know what I mean? There's no rhyme or reason. The dude that has Mahomes, okay, he does have Worthy and Kelsey, so he actually had a plan. See, and you get a little bummed. Like, am I bummed that I made that error on Montgomery and Ingram? Yes. Am I bummed that I didn't get Burrow? Yes. But, like, you have to think, as sharp drafters are being flooded with kind of novice drafters, the only way to use that as your advantage is to kind of lean into having builds that are different.
Right.
Because if you're just going to sweat getting the perfect team, like, you're not going to get the perfect team in these rooms, you know?
Yeah. That's me done at tight end.
You went Goddard? Okay.
I did. Now, have you had Spike Week during the season before?
No, this is my first year having it.
I'm curious to see if it's going to be worth keeping around through the season, or if it's something where I can cut off the subscription once drafting is done.
I think you can probably cut it off. No shade on Spike Week, but I think you can probably cut it off without worrying too much.
Yeah. Maybe even just like reactivate it like week 13 to see where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm done at tight end. You've got Evan Ingram. Who are you looking at for your next tight end?
Probably Chigakonkwo or Colby Parkinson or Ben Sinnott. So probably at the last round.
Sure.
I didn't have a lot of Trevor Lawrence, and I pretty much invested heavily on Ridley and Ingram, so I kind of wanted to set up a stack because I'm kind of going with naked Jaden Daniels, but that also allows me to be done at quarterback. And good thing, because look at Herbert and Tua coming off the board there in the middle. Yeah. Like, I doubt T-Law would have come back to me, so that one was probably the right move. Let's see. Who do I have low? Really, I'm just looking for low rostership now of players. You know what? I have very little Gus Edwards, so I'm going to take him. 3% Gus Edwards. So that's just one I've just been avoiding, so why not?
Debating here between Eckler and Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford, kind of planning on going and getting Deshaun Watson, so not that having a running back with your QB is super important. The thing, I feel like I would lean Eckler here except that I have him with a lot of the players on my team already at combo percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just to be different, I'm going to steer clear of Eckler in this draft.
I don't mind that.
Even though in my heart it feels like that's the correct pick, that's probably just I need to diversify my clicks here.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider Eckler if he came back to me. I don't know if he will, but he might. There's plenty of receivers to still take. Probably looking at a 2. See, I took Ingram ahead of his ADP a little bit. Maybe a mistake, but I'm probably looking at a 2-2 build that I talked about earlier. Like, I think that the 2 tight end, 2 quarterback build is going to be the one that you're going to want, especially now when you're kind of not sure about some of the running backs that you're going to be taking late. And I'm probably going to be taking 6 running backs on this team. So I'd rather save that extra bullet for a running back at the end. Ooh, Gabe Davis. Just had to have that Gabe Davis. Had to have him.
I had to.
Yeah, like that's a team all of a sudden that team, if you just look at it, it has like zero rhyme or reason to what they're doing. It's odd.
Yeah. Jeez, I might get Eckler anyways.
I think you will. Unless this guy just goes.
Yeah. I mean, I only have 9%. He just happens to be on the teams that I have, like Najee and Pickens and all the players that make sense with him.
Trey Benson, I don't really like Trey Benson. He's going to get picked, but he's tempting to take here. Because even though he's falling, this is still pretty far past his ADP.
Yeah.
I have James Conner.
Dotson?
Yeah, I'm taking Dotson. I'm not taking Benson because I already have Conner. That would be a waste, but like that's an intriguing pick. And I don't even like Benson. I really don't want a lot of Benson, but I already have 13% where I've taken him pretty much in the spot where he typically goes, like around before this. So I don't really want to take him here.
I somehow have 26%. I don't know. I don't remember taking him that much, but my average ADP on him is 106. So that's
which
a little unfortunate. But I'm not going to start clicking him now to rectify that.
Yeah, that is good value right there. Getting him a 142. That's pretty ridiculous. That team has 4 running backs already, and he still went Benson, even though his receivers are yikes. Didn't care. He's like, I can't pass up that value.
Yeah. I think I have one more non-running back pick in me. Like I said, I'm trying to focus in on that 2952 build.
What do I want to do here?
Algier's a good click there. I've been taking him lately.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long shot. I technically took him because he's got correlation, but so did McLaughlin. But I have a lot more McLaughlin than Algier. And McLaughlin feels like the kind of player that you take when you desperately need running back points. Whereas I think I have between Connor, Brown, and Edwards, I think I already have some unsexy running back points like that. McLaughlin feels like the not a great play for a half PPR league like this, but like if you have just nothing at running back and you need somebody that's going to score. I mean, McLaughlin, even in half PPR, is going to score 130 points this year. I just don't know what that's going to look like on a weekly basis, which if he gives you 3 games, you're happy with it. So one of the downsides is when you take a guy like Ayuk. Remember, I took Ayuk because it's a unique pairing with Chase, and I'm probably just going to end up with Ayuk on an island. There's not going to be any correlation because there's really not much to correlate with Ayuk unless I just take a random Lion receiver, which is usually a mistake.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people will do that. They will be like, oh, they have these spike week tools and other tools that are similar. And they'll look and they'll be like, I need to get correlation for my Ayuk. But like, what does that actually mean? Did you just take a random like Khalif Raymond because he correlates? Like, I think that's a mistake. I think you should focus on the heavier game stacks that you have and correlating with those or correlating with your quarterbacks. And I've made some of those mistakes too, where I try to correlate every game and it's like taking a random Lion, which is probably a suboptimal pick anyway if you don't have Goff,
Right.
Like taking a random Lion receiver just because I need combinations with Ayuk is probably not super smart if you don't have any of the quarterbacks. Let's see. Tight ends. I can wait on tight end. Probably need a other running back.
I may end up taking one more wide receiver in this draft, but if I do, it'll be super late. And the only reason I'm considering it is because I do have the 2 Texans with the same bye. So I'd prefer to have one more live shot in that week 14, especially going into the playoffs.
Ooh, I'm up. Okay. I need to roll here. No. You know what? That was my plan. Just take some more estimate.
I think at this point in the draft, I'm just going ADP be damned.
Oh yeah, I just took Estimate a round ahead of his ADP, but Estimate is a guy that's probably going to stay where he is. If there's anything more favorable, he's going to keep moving up. So I still think taking him in like the 15th or 16th is about where he's going to end up. But I have a lot of Estimate. I think that's probably my. See, we're like 33 minutes into this draft, and it just kind of goes along seamlessly. It's moving very fast.
Right.
But like my 2 of my 3 highest rostered running backs in BBM before today was Osric Estime and Chase Brown. I end up with another team with Estime and Chase Brown.
Yeah.
It's like if you just get me in my groove, you can clearly see where my biases are, right?
Yeah.
Like there's obviously some biases on those 2 players, which, you know, I really shouldn't have biases on players like that, but like those 2 players clearly are biases or are they're soft spots for me.
Sure.
And I need to stop. I don't want to have 30% Chase Brown, 30% Estimate, and I'm getting close to it. I keep taking them. Because to get to 30%, like you're at 30 shares, 35 shares. Like that's going to put me. I mean, and I'm only doing this. Only my 82nd draft. So I mean, if I'm already at 30%, then I've taken quite a bit.
Right.
See, here's where I hope ADP is be damned for others, because I'm actually hoping that either a couple guys fall to me.
McCaffrey or Sinat or Chig? Or is that too early for them?
No, I'll definitely take McCaffrey because everyone's chasing rookie receivers now. And he's probably like the next receiver up in ADP. Chig. Okay, who took Chig? The Burrow manager with the random 3rd tight end with Chig, dude. Look at that guy's team. I mean, you do you, but look at that dude's team. There's just no rhyme or reason.
No, none at all.
Why take Schultz and Kittle and then take Chig when I don't know. He did get Purdy and Kittle. I'll give him that, but I wonder if that was more an accident than purposeful.
Love me some Justice Hill. Probably my dynasty bias is coming through there.
No, I'm good with Justice Hill. Totally good with Justice Hill. I'm going to push Sanat here. If someone else wants to take Sanat, you can have a rookie tight end. I'm fine with that. Now that I have McCaffrey, I'm less worried about getting Sanat. I can just take a second tight end later. There's still a couple that I'm interested in.
Look at all that green through my wide receiver room. Just missing beautiful. Miami and Dallas, but I have no intentions to take those players.
It's beautiful.
More than likely.
Very beautiful setup.
Yeah, but it's all through running backs, which is how you want it, right? You're telling yourself the story that, okay, maybe in week 17, the Ravens get out to a huge lead and they start ground and pounding with Justice Hill against Nico Collins and Diggs and Stroud trying to catch up.
Or the other way around. Texans get ahead. Henry's off the field. Justice Hill's getting receptions.
Yeah.
Either way, I think that's the most important thing of doing these drafts, whether you're doing 10 entries, 20 entries, 50 entries. You do have to – there's more to correlation than just getting guys in the same game. It's correlating outcomes, thinking about, okay, if I'm making a big bet on – another thing I haven't really thought about, but like if you're making a huge bet on a team, so in your case, like the Texans – and maybe if you even went a step further and you had like Dalton Schultz, you went Stroud, Nico, Diggs, Schultz. Like it actually doesn't, you don't mind having correlation. You could almost build a team with a bunch of Texans correlation, right? Like I want every other player I have to be playing the Texans.
Yeah.
Not just the Ravens, but I want, some other AFC South. I want some other teams that have opponents against the Texans throughout the year. If you play the Texans, I'm more interested in building with you because you want some of those big spike weeks across the entire season, not just, oh, that was the snipe right there, bro.
Javon
Baker was my snipe, yeah. Well, he's got the same buy, but I really don't want to take Ben Sinnott. I really don't. You know what, though? I gotta take Sinnott just because I have Daniels. I don't care about the buy. Give me these double stacks with tight end.
What's your take on Pierce versus Akers versus Jawar Jordan?
Give me Pierce.
Pierce, really?
I think Jordan's not any good. He wasn't even a starter in college. He's 193 pounds. I don't see it. I think there's more of a chance that none of them are good.
Sure.
Like no shade, I wouldn't take any Akers. I don't even think Akers will make the team.
That may be my one share of him.
Yeah, that's fine. I think they'll probably end up with using guys no one's even drafting, like a Gumbawale. They'll probably still use him. Like it's just a messy number. That's one of those where if you're taking Texans backups, you have to be right. Otherwise, there's a very good chance it's a zero. Yet it's a weird situation where it's a good offense and like nobody's super confident about the starter. Even though the one thing about Mixon is he doesn't get injured. Like he really the last 3 years he's been about as rock solid as it gets. So
yeah.
All right. I got to look for a receiver. I really, really got sniped on Javon Baker. That's who I was going to round this team out with.
What's your Yosivas percentage at nowadays?
6%.
I would have thought it was higher with how much you've been talking about him.
Yeah, but I'm only taking him with Burrow.
Sure.
So it's really like I've only been taking him on teams with Burrow. And I don't want to take him on this team, even though it makes sense to take him because, I mean, I have
both the other receivers.
Higgins and Chase Brown?
Yeah.
If I would have gotten Burrow, I would have gone all in and taken Yosivas, but not here.
I'm between Jamal Williams, Samaje Perine, Andre Yosifas, and Josh Reynolds is my last pick.
I like Josh Reynolds. I was considering him. Give me another Bronco because all I have is Estime. I like Reynolds. He's probably on my short list. Reynolds and a Jaguar.
Gotta make sure that the bye weeks are fine. What's Reynolds bye week? 14. Can't take Reynolds. Bummer. I think I'm gonna end up taking Jamal Williams here. I know I said I was considering a wide receiver as that last pick, but I haven't gotten any Jamal Williams. I'm not confident in Kendra Miller, who is still on the board, by the way, which is hilarious.
Yeah. He may go undrafted, dude.
Yeah.
He may go undrafted. It's a bummer that I took how many running backs do I have? I have 6. Yeah, I got to take. It's between Reynolds and Parker Washington. I don't have a lot of Reynolds, so I'm going to take him.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't advocate for other people to take Reynolds since I'm taking so much of him.
I mean, on these correlated teams where you have Knicks or you have Bengals, I mean, he's a guy that's not going to get drafted in for now. Like if we keep pumping him up,
yeah,
he's going to get drafted a little more. But like, yeah, Kendra is going to go undrafted. Well, unless this dude, this is that wild drafter.
Too.
This is the dude with 3
3-3-9-2.
QBs. He's got 3 QBs. He only has 3 running backs. Now his running backs are all good. Yeah, dude, I actually don't hate his team. He did take Kendre Miller. I don't hate that dude's team. He came out with a 3,100 projection. He blew us all away.
Yeah, let's just look at this guy's team. Where is he? He's
abnormal. I don't hate his team. I hate the third quarterback. I don't like taking Justin Herbert 2 rounds ahead of his ADP. But I don't hate his team. You know?
Yeah. Just a lot of dart throws with his.
There's not a lot of correlation. But I think at the end, he started to just take ADP value, because look at the ADP value he got on Ferguson. Look what he got on Franklin. He got it on Kendre. He got it on Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield around 19 or 17. I mean, I don't know why he took Baker Mayfield, but he must have been on auto pick. But he did. Here's the thing. He did draft Mike Evans.
Right.
So letting him have Baker there again, like how many teams are going to have Dak, Lamb, Ferguson, Baker, Evans, Devontae Smith bring back, Xavier Legette bring back, with Jacobs, Mixon, Montgomery, and Dalton Kincaid as a starting tight end.
Yeah. Not to mention, I mean, you've got also, you have Herbert QJ, which who knows how relevant that's
Herbert
QJ,
be, yep. At least you have, I mean, I would not have taken Herbert where he took Herbert.
Right.
But I think if that works and Herbert plays, and then all his other players, I mean, besides Darnell Mooney, Burton, Franklin, they're rookies. You know what I mean? You're just looking for a breakout at relative to ADP. So I don't hate the team. I see teams like that, and those are teams where I'm like, I got to build some teams like that.
Yeah.
Just rogue, no plan until the plan just punches me in the face. And then it's like, oh, wow, I ended up with a team I never thought I would have, but it's actually quite good because, you know, we were in our hive mind of our own drafting, right?
Right.
Neither of us were taking Baker Mayfield. Like, he just wasn't on the radar. There wasn't even a thought of, we were so focused on spike week and correlating. Like, we would have let Baker fall to the end of the draft, right? And just never even thought to take him. And if you get in a draft with like 9 of us, there's going to be a team that just goes rogue, and they're going to go, man, I'm just scooping up every piece of value possible because every one of these other people is only drafting for structure. So I don't know. I guess my last question for you would be, how would you combat that? Do you have the balls to go into a draft and just draft without a plan and just say, I'm going to scoop up value and build little mini stacks throughout? Because it feels like that could be a viable thing. Hell, I may try it here in a minute when we're off.
Yeah, I don't know that I have the stomach for it. I've tried one where I tried, you know, going ADP hunting, and I abandoned it by like the 5th round because it was just like, I had no correlation, and I was miserable.
Was everybody just going off of ADP too?
Yeah, a lot of it was going chalk as well.
Because that's the problem. When you have everybody else in the room that is just following ADP, then there's no ADP value to be had.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you're like, you look up. I tried to do that in a slow draft or two, and then you look up and you're like, you're on the clock at pick 54, and the ADP of the players remaining is like 53.8 and lower. It's just like there is no ADP value because everybody's doing it. Then it's like, okay, if everyone's following it, then the structure is going to be more important. So,
talk to me about your team.
Let me pull it back up. Yeah, so I mean, I went 4 receivers to start: Chase, Ayuk, Kupp, Higgins. Obviously, planned on getting Burrow and Higgins. Went a 5th receiver with Ridley, and then was pretty happy with where I was through 5 rounds with those receivers. I mean, I didn't have any correlation with Ayuk. Ended up correlating Cooper Kupp with James Conner, so that's fine. Like, that's a team you can easily correlate later with either Kyler, Stafford, Connor, other Cardinals receivers, etc. So fine with that. I mean, I said it in the stream. The mistake that I thought I made was taking Ingram over Montgomery. Because if I would have taken Montgomery, then there's my Ayuk correlation.
Right.
I could have pivoted from Ingram to Brian Thomas, who went right before me. But if Ingram wouldn't have gone, one of those two would have been there. So I could have probably gotten Montgomery and then either Brian Thomas or Ingram, which would have correlated with my Ridley. And once I had that built, I could have been flexible. I didn't have to take Burrow. I didn't have to take Brock Purdy. I didn't have to take Trevor Lawrence, right? Because I have all three options. Like I'm already building game stacks with all three. So that was a tactical error for me. If that's one thing I could change, 100%, that's what I would change. Ended up settling on a naked Jaden Daniels, which that was kind of like, I need more Jaden Daniels, and he's also very easy to stack. So I ended up getting Dotson and Sanat with Daniels along with Algier. So I'm fine with that. Yeah, McCaffrey, Dotson, Sanat, and Daniels. So basically all in on the offense except for Eckler and McLaurin. So build out that stack. Ended up taking T-Law right as ADP because I already had Ridley and Ingram. So building up a third player from that offense, fine with that. And then everything else was just trying to correlate. Took Gus Edwards, Antonio Gibson, just running back correlation. Those are risky. I don't love doing running back correlation because, like, what are the odds that Gus Edwards and Antonio Gibson are going against each other in week 17? Like, it's probably pretty low.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But I needed 6 running backs anyway, so why not? Estime, took another Estime and Josh Reynolds for all the Bengals that I have. I'd give it like a B. It's not a great team. It's heavily correlated. Every piece correlates except for Ayuk. And it's got 3 different pretty heavy game stacks, 3 game stacks with at least 4 players. But aside from that, I don't think it's going to win. I think taking the Montgomery, building it the other way, potentially could have been a game changer. Because the other thing that we didn't talk about is I missed out on, remember the dude took Dak and Ferguson and he took Ferguson as his tight end too?
Mm-hmm.
Like he got Ferguson at pick 99. So
tons of value.
That's he didn't need Ferguson, but he already had Lamb. Dak fell into his lap at the turn. Had I taken Montgomery and Thomas, that's when I took Jaden Daniels, remember?
Yeah.
Like right after that is when I took Jaden Daniels. I would have gone Dak. Sniped the guy that had CD Lamb, dared him to take Jake Ferguson when he already has Lamb, but he doesn't have Dak.
Right.
And if he doesn't, then all of a sudden I've now turned a Chase, Higgins, Kupp, Ayuk, Ridley, Montgomery team with now Dak and Ferguson, which is going to be unique.
Right.
So I wish I would have done that, but the Ingram pick caused me completely derailed my plan. So, yeah.
And I think
in a nutshell,
I think you and I had very similar starts where we both led off with 5 receivers, 2 of our receivers from the same team, but we kind of diverged a little bit. I chose to reach a little bit on Stroud rather than push him. You chose to push Burrow and didn't end up with him, but I think, that's making you have a very unique team. But yeah, and then the other big difference between us is after your first 5, you did end up taking 3 more receivers late. Talk to me about when you start off the first 5 rounds with a receiver, do you think that there's an optionality there to kind of punt receiver, right? If you've got that much equity in him already.
Yes, but the only reason I probably took 8 receivers was because I settled on 2 tight ends.
Sure.
But you could have justified on this team taking 3 tight ends, given my second was Benson Knott. But I also said I think 2 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks is going to win. So,
right.
Would you have taken 7 running backs instead of 8 receivers? That would have been the pivot, a 2-7-7-2 instead of a 2-6-8-2. But I've really been on a kick of doing 2 running back or 2 quarterback, 2 tight end teams. So that's because I think if you're taking tight end, whether you end up having a good tight end or not, tight end is by far the least impactful player on your
Right.
team. And the odds that your tight end hits your flex, unless it is like a top 8 tight end, is extremely low. Like, you don't want Ben Sinnott to hit your flex. Like, sure, you want him to hit your flex, like you want him to be incredible, but realistically, a tight end being taken at tight end 25 is probably never going to hit your flex.
Right.
So you're literally already banking on the guy you drafted to hit your flex. Never, because your starter is going to be in your starting spot most of the time. But if he's not, then you just want your other guy to fill in. But you're kind of expecting, like, I just need to keep up with the Joneses at tight end. It intrigues me a little bit. And it's something I wanted to try to do a little bit more. I tried it the other day where I had started a draft with, it was Amon-Ra and, no, what was it? Gibbs and Puka. And then I came back and took Laporta at like pick there. I was in the 11 spot. Took Laporta. And I was going to take McBride. Because then all of a sudden I have Laporta, Gibbs, McBride, Puka. But the key being, I'm trying to kind of throw off the rest of the draft to allow me to get some better value at some of the other positions because it pushes some of the tight ends up. And I think if you draft 2 tight ends that early, that's a lot of capital into a tight end. Like, the odds that McBride or Laporta, like, both of them have to be top 3 for that to pay off.
For sure.
But I do think there's some merit in taking 2 early tight ends. If you can get one to fall, if you can get Bowers to fall or Njoku to fall or Ferguson to fall, like, I think that's probably the cutoff line where I can stomach having 2 tight ends if it's one of those guys. Like, that one dude had, I think, Kincaid and Ferguson. But the key is he paid, what, round 9 prices for Ferguson?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, the receivers or running backs you're taking there, the odds that they're hitting your flexes are a little bit lower as well. So I don't know. I think 2 tight ends is the way to go. It's just how risky can you get with the 2 you take?
Right.
If you take one early, one late, and your early one's a bust, then the team's cooked.
Yeah, and I think part of the bet you're making if you take 2 of the top 5 tight ends is, okay, hopefully one of these is hitting my flex every now and again.
Correct.
Yeah.
Randomly. I mean, the flex rate against receivers is like 10%. But you're taking them early enough that it could happen a couple times just based on bye weeks, just based on random variance. You know what I mean? But I think the other thing that's key is that you are also betting that you have 2 of the tight ends that potentially could have a lot of the spike weeks.
Right.
So when one of your tight ends doesn't have a great week, like let's say you have Mark Andrews and Brock Bowers, you'd go, well, why would you do that? Well, sure, you need Mark Andrews to be great, but there's going to be probably 6 weeks where he's not keeping up with the random 3 tight end build teams that you're going against. But when you have Bowers in there, if he does, you're always dominating. Like, the goal is to always dominate that position against your league. Now, is that going to help you advance to the winning circle? Like, are you going to win it all with 2 early tight ends? I don't think so. But I do think it helps you advance. So if you're drafting 50 teams and you get 2 of them that advance out of your pod just because you had that tight end advantage, I think that's worth it.
Right.
Because dude, if you have 150 teams, the odds of getting like 3 teams to the playoffs, like, that's about your odds. Like, to think, I'm gonna have 10 teams that make it to the playoffs out of 150. Like, I think that's even a pipe dream. Let alone like a team that gets to the finals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I hate to kind of like depress you, but like, if you're doing 50 drafts, like, if you can get like 2 to the playoffs, like, bravo. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. There's so many teams that getting some unique style builds, I think, is very crucial.
Yeah,
You're gonna do these. So one thing that's gonna happen is they're gonna release a lot more tournaments, quick ones. I think as somebody that doesn't want to max BBM, I think you should focus on some of those littler ones, like the 4 entry max, the 10 entry max ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of want to be in BBM5 as much as I can. So I mean, every little one that I max is, a couple less entries of BBM5.
Right.
So it's all just, my goal here is, get a couple that do okay and maybe be able to be able to
play more next year.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Yep.
100%. 100%.
So, the one thing with my team, I think that week 14, I mean, because I stuck with my 5 receivers, I'm gonna, there's gonna be either my second tight end or one of these running backs hitting my flex. So luckily, I mean, it's a numbers game. You've got 9 running backs. Hopefully, one of them gets 10 or 15 points to hit your flex after the first 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like my first 4, 5 running backs are kind of in committee back situations where they're the 1A, 1B type of committees. I think Cincinnati could be that. We know Pittsburgh is going to be that. There's a good chance that Chubb's not back right away. I think Eckler is going to split work with B-Rob. I think that Hubbard might take on more than people want him to with Brooks, the whole Brooks situation. So, and if or with this team, we're praying on a Jamal Williams resurgence where he actually gets some goal line work like he did with the Lions. Albeit with a much, much worse O-line.
Yeah, I like it. It's unique. Your team's a little more unique than mine. I think mine's probably more like 4th place team, doesn't have enough differentiation. The structure is okay, but it's not anything outside the box, where you definitely took gambles at quarterback and, you went slim at quarterback, you went slim at receiver. Like you definitely loaded up at extra bullets at running back with your draft. So I kind of like it. More unique than mine. Good stuff.
Thank you. Well, it was awesome having you on.
Yeah, man. We'll do it again sometime. Hit me up later in the summer. Schedule gets a little tight later in the summer, but we can do another one if you want. I got to knock out another freaking 67 of these drafts. So hit me up maybe end of August or so. We'll do one. Yeah.
Are you hitting some fatigue? Just the sheer number that you have to draft?
No, because I'm also doing the other smaller tournaments, and I'm doing the Ray convinced me to do that new college football one. Just max that one.
Sure.
Which, I mean, it's only like $60, but like I know jack shit about college, but he's like, it doesn't matter. There's 100 and I mean, there's not quite 100, but there's like 70 teams you can pick from because it's like the Power 4 conferences, and it's like the amount of combinations you can build and the amount of players that are available. Like you can easily, if you just have best ball principles, you can easily correlate with just players that are undrafted. The wide receiver 2 on like Syracuse doesn't get drafted, but there's a world where you would want to draft pretty much everybody with the right correlation. So no, I'm not. I have I'm doing a lot of different. I've got about 80 drafts on DraftKings, about another 100 on FFPC. So I'm just doing a lot of like, I mean, literally I'm on the clock 100 times a day. So it's just constant, but that's fun. You're either all in or you're not. So,
right.
But yeah, hit me up later in the year. We'll do another one.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Get out of here.